I find myself very unwell this morning, which I suppose is to be imputed to my getting wet through yesterday. My kind friends at Netherfield insist on my seeing the apothecary, and will not hear of my returning until I am better. Do not be alarmed, excepting a sore throat and a headache. There is not much the matter with me. Yours, etc., Jane.
Well, my dear, if your daughter should have a dangerous fit of illness, if she should die, it will be a comfort to know that it was all in pursuit of Mr. Bingley, and under your orders.
Oh, Mr. Bennet, people do not die of trifling little colds. As long as she stays there, all will be well.
I think I must walk to Netherfield to see her. I know Jane would want me to be with her.
Lizzie, to think of such a thing in all this dirt and mud. You will not be fit to be seen when you get there.
I shall be very fit to see Jane, which is all I want.
Miss Eliza Bennet, such a long walk on such a cold day. Surely you didn't come alone.
Welcome, Miss Elizabeth.
And your petticoat? 6 inches deep in mud, Miss Eliza. Quite the fashion these days in London. Is it not, Mr. Hurst?
You would not want your sister to make such an exhibition of herself, would you, Mr. Darcy?
Miss Elizabeth Bennet,
Mr. Darcy?
did you walk alone?
I did. How is my sister?
Poor Jane.
Oh yes, poor Jane.
May we accompany you to see her?
We've been so worried.
It was wonderful, Darcy, wonderful.
Well, let me guess, you never met with more pleasant people.
Exactly.
While I observed a collection of people in whom there was little beauty and no fashion, for none of whom I felt the smallest interest.
I've never met with prettier girls in my life. As for Miss Bennet, I could not conceive an angel more beautiful.
She smiles too much.
The smiling angel's inconveniently unwell.
Miss Elizabeth, will you please sit down?
Thank you.
How is Miss Bennet?
At present, she is asleep.
You're writing to your sister then, Mr. Darcy. You write rather quickly.
I write slowly.
Is Miss Darcy much grown since the spring? Will she be as tall as I am?
She is now about Miss Elizabeth Bennet's height.
How I long to see her again. Such a countenance, such manners.
And so extremely accomplished for her age.
Her performance on the pianoforte is exquisite.
It is amazing to me how young ladies can have the patience to be so very accomplished, as they all are.
All young ladies accomplished.
My dear Charles, what can you mean?
That word is applied to many a woman who does not really deserve it. I cannot boast of knowing more than half a dozen in the whole range of my acquaintance that are really accomplished.
She must have a thorough knowledge of music, singing, drawing, dancing,
and modern languages.
and she must possess a certain je ne sais quoi in her air and manner of walking,
And in her tone of voice.
or the word would be but half deserved.
And to all this yet, she must add something more substantial in the improvement of her mind by extensive reading.
I am no longer surprised at your knowing only 6 accomplished women, Mr. Darcy. I now rather wonder at your knowing any.
Well then, let us have some music. Louise, you're not smiling by making Mr. Hurst.
Not at all.
I hardly know how to suppose that I should be a thing of admiration to such a man as he, and yet that he should look at me out of dislike, out of disapprobation, is certainly more strange. Consequently, I'd imagine that I merit his attention due to something terrible in me, something reprehensible in me.
At first I scarce allowed her to be pretty, and disliking falter. Where once I searched for blemish, I discovered there dwells beauty.
Consequently, I imagine that I merit his attention due to something terrible in me. Something reprehensible in me.
I believe I can guess the subject of your reverie, Mr. Darcy.
I should imagine not.
Oh,
I have been meditating on the very great pleasure which a pair of fine eyes in the face of a very pretty woman can bestow.
indeed, Mr. Darcy.
I rather think they were brightened by the exercise, don't you?
Miss Elizabeth Bennet, I am all astonishment. Pray, when am I to wish you joy? Might we offer her the carriage?
The lady's imagination is very rapid.
You will have a charming mother-in-law indeed.
I knew you would be wishing me joy.
And she will be always with you at Pemberley.
Caroline. Miss Bennet is most unwell.
Cancel the carriage.
We would be delighted to have you stay with us, Miss Elizabeth.
Thank you, Mr. Bingley.
Delighted.
I'm glad you have come home, Lizzie and Jane. Conversation has lost much of its animation and almost all its sense in your absence.
Indeed, I cannot agree with you, Mr. Bennet, and I quite wonder at Jane coming home at all with her so unwell. And it was wrong of you, Lizzie, to give the Bingleys so much trouble, and I really wish you would have stayed. Now Jane will die for certain. And then what will we tell Mr. Bingley? Hey, Charlotte Lucas will be first in line.
I hope, my dear, that you have ordered a good dinner for today. I have reason to expect an addition to our family party. The person of whom I speak is a gentleman and a stranger.
A gentleman and a stranger. But does he wear a red coat?
We are not all enamored of regimentals.
There was a time when I liked the red coat a great deal, and indeed I still do in my heart. And if a certain smart young colonel of, say, 5,000 or 6,000 a year should want one of my girls, I shall not say nay.
I am speaking of my cousin, Mr. Collins. I have never seen him in the whole course of my life, and when I am dead, he may turn you all out of his house as soon as he pleases.
Oh, Mr. Bennet, you have no consideration for my daughters.
Welcome, Mr. Collins.
Mr. Collins, I'm older than you.
Mr. Collins. But I'm prettier.
Won't you join us for dinner, Mr. Collins?
First, let me reiterate points of my lectures, bricks of veins, that definitively states Lady Catherine, Lady Catherine de Bourgh.
Please sit down, Mrs. Collins.
Do go on, sir.
My late father, rest in peace, held tightly reason for your reprimand. Forgive me, I do understand.
Lady Catherine understands, madam.
I believe that Mr. Collins is the epitome of courtesy.
What does epitome mean, Mary?
It means laughing. It means laughing stock.
Do go on, Mr. Collins.
Reports of beauty have on head, and they come now to countenance, and beauty trumps in heaven. I learned that in a game of whist.
Lady Catherine does not disapprove of whist.
That does not rhyme.
Or dancing.
Intelligence. Whist.
I am most fortunate in my choice of patroness.
Papa, can you be a sensible man?
I am delighted with the visit.
I approve your dining room and halls, and all their furniture and walls, and Lord dinner wherein one must fall.
To beg.
Which bag?
Which fair one did prepare it all?
Keep that cook, Mr. Collins. We are not destitute.
Yes.
Apologies, madam. At present I will say no more. But perhaps when we are better acquainted, perhaps I shall say more then. Miss Jane Bennet.
Mr. Collins, please!
Well, Mr. Collins, as to my younger daughters, I cannot say, I cannot positively answer, but I do not know of any prepossession. Jane? What?
Mr. Collins, she says that as to her younger daughters, she cannot positively say, and she does not know of any prepossession.
But I must just hint. Indeed, I feel it incumbent upon me to mention.
She must just hint. She feels it incumbent upon herself to mention.
And her eldest daughter, Jane.
That her eldest daughter, Jane,
is very likely to be soon engaged.
Very likely to be soon engaged.
Engaged, Oh, my dear cousin Elizabeth!
Papa, please do let us walk to Meryton and see if there are any officers about.
Officers?
So probably a man of your profession ought not to be associating with officers. They can be terribly wicked. Well, they are.
Ma, perhaps if I was to read an uplifting treatise to the young ladies during their perambulation. Oh, I see here you have a copy of 4 Dice's sermons for young women. And that is very
Mr. Bennet, he is a very nice young man. I have always said so.
Yes, you are an excellent judge of character, my dear.
nature appears to have formed the mental faculties of your sex, for the most part, with less vigor than that of ours. Observe and hear the same distinction as in the more delicate frame of your bodies.
Kitty, I cannot wait for our next call. You simply cannot imagine how starved I am with flirting and dancing and news.
Do go on, Mr. Collins.
But you yourselves, I think, will allow that war, commerce, politics, exercises of strength and dexterity, abstract philosophy, and all the obtrusive sciences are most probably the province of man. There is an influence. There is an empire which belongs solely to you.
Excuse me, Mr. Collins.
And which I wish you ever to possess. I refer to that which has the heart for its object, and is secured by weakness, by soft attraction, and by virtuous love.
Mr. Collins, our sisters.
Hey, come back here.
I have often heard how little young ladies are interested by books of a serious stamp. They're written solely for their benefit. I must confess it amazes me.
I must say, boys, it's good to get out in the very room.
Oh, look, Kitty! Look, there is Mr. Denny. Oh, where? You, Denny!
Miss Lydia Bennett, Miss Lee. May I introduce Mr. George Wickham? His return was just yesterday from town, and I am pleased to say that he has accepted a position in our force.
I'm delighted to meet you, miss.
This is my sister, Lizzie Bennett. This is Jane and Kitty.
Miss Bennett. Miss Elizabeth Bennett. Miss...
Miss Mary Bennett.
I'm charmed, Miss Mary. Miss Kitty.
And this is our cousin, the Reverend Humble Collins.
The Reverend William Collins at your service, sir.
It's Mr. Bingley.
Miss Bennett, how wonderful to see you. I was just now on my way to Longbourn to inquire after you.
Thank you, you are very kind.
I hope your presence here today is evidence that you are in health.
Yes, indeed.
And an indication of your intention to attend the ball at Netherfield Park tomorrow evening.
Yes, indeed, thank you.
Wonderful.
Mr. Bingley, Mr. Darcy, may I present Mr. Collins and Mr. Wickham?
Mr. Darcy.
Girls, Aunt, what wonderful timing.
May I persuade you to join me for a little luncheon? Your uncle will not be here with us today to see us in court, but perhaps the gentlemen might be pleased to join us.
Yes, we would be honored.
We must be going.
Miss Bennett, ladies.
Well, madam, the gentlemen of the regiment would be delighted to join you.
Miss Phillips, madam, I do apologize for my intrusion without a previous acquaintance.
Aunt, may I introduce our cousin, Mr. Collins.
It's an excess of good breeding what Mr. Collins demonstrates.
Oh, yes, my Mr. Collins is excessively excessive.
Elizabeth, would you allow me to escort you?
Oh, why thank you, Mr. Wickham.
Might I ask how long Mr. Darcy has been in Netherfield?
About a month. He is a man of very large property in Derbyshire, I understand.
Indeed, his estate there is noble. You could not have met with a person more capable of giving you certain information on that head than myself, for I've been connected with his family from my infancy.
Indeed.
You may well be surprised, Miss Bennet, after seeing the cold manner of our greeting just now. We are not on friendly terms.
I'm very sorry to hear it. But this will not keep you from attending the ball at Netherfield Park.
I would not surrender the pleasure, but are you much acquainted with him?
As much as I ever wish to be. I have spent 4 days in the same house with him, and I find him very disagreeable.
I am sorry to hear it, though it does not surprise me. Fitzwilliam Darcy and myself were born within the same parish, and the greatest part of our youth was passed together. And my father gave up everything to be of use to the late Mr. Darcy, and devoted all his time to the care of the estate of Pemberley. And old Mr. Darcy gave my father a voluntary promise of providing for me. The church ought to have been my profession, and I should now be in possession of a most valuable living, had it pleased the gentleman we were speaking of just now. The late Mr. Darcy was my godfather and extremely attached to me, but when the church living became available 2 years ago, he gave it elsewhere.
George Wickham less, I might have borne with him better, but I could not bear the sort of preference my father gave to him, and so I have treated him scandalously.
To treat in such a manner the favourite of his father, a man such as you, whose very countenance may vouch for your being amiable. I have not thought Mr. Darcy so very bad as all this, capable of descending to such malicious revenge, such injustice, such inhumanity. I would have thought your pride would have kept you from such dishonesty. God, for dishonesty, I must call it.
Miss Elizabeth Bennet! But surely you never thought that you could get the better of Fitzwilliam Darcy!
You frightful. I am astonished at his friendship with Mr. Bingley, who is a very sweet-tempered, amiable, charming young man. Surely he cannot know what Mr. Darcy is.
Probably not. The fact of the matter is that we are very different sort of men, and that he hates me. But he can please where he chooses. With the rich he is sincere, honorable, perhaps even agreeable.
Of course.
And he has great pride in his family name. And brotherly pride, which makes him a careful defender of his sister.
Tell me, what sort of girl is Miss Darcy?
I wish I could call her amiable. It gives me pain to speak ill of Darcy, but she is too much like her brother. Very, very proud.
Oh. Then it does not surprise me.
She means nothing to me now.
Mr. Wickham?
She means nothing to me now.